Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. 2017's been an interesting year. One of the things that's happened quite often across the country has been a disease issue. We're going to talk about one of those in soybeans today.
Well, it's a bright sunny day here where we're filming, and if sunlight, we normally think of that as a good thing. It's a bad thing if sunlight actually can get down through your crop canopy, and that does happen sometimes in corn, and then you end up with some late weed escapes. Well, what are you going to do this late in the season? We'll talk about that today.
One of those weeds we may mention is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this particular weed later in the show, but first, here's our farm basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk a little about leaf burn. This is something that can happen after a farmer sprays a herbicide, and so right away, as a non-farmer, you may be thinking, what? You're going to damage the crop? You're going to have some leaf burn? That's not good, is it? Well, actually, it's really not that bad most of the time, but today we wanted to just explain that a little bit, why we see leaf burn, why we don't, and if that actually can hurt yield.
Now, we've all seen those fields that Brian was talking about where it looks like, wow, the farmer must have sprayed the wrong thing on that field because the crop sure didn't like it. Here's the thing, it's kind of like medicine that you take. Sometimes it can be a little hard on you because the problem that you've got going on in your body is really tough to get. In crop fields, for example, like corn, we're standing in a cornfield. Corn is a grass plant. The toughest weeds to kill in a grass field like this are grass weeds. So sometimes when you're after some of those grasses, you may ding the corn just a little bit because the corn is so similar to the particular grass that you're trying to take out. So there are a number of things that farmers can do to try to help what we call selectivity of the herbicide, where it hurts the intended target, yet is easier on the crop.
So like Darren said, it is kind of difficult to find the right herbicide that is selective enough on the weed that we're after, but doesn't hurt the crop. So what the farmer can do with all this is, number one, he can follow what the label instructions are. The companies, before they label these products, they go through a lot of testing and they figure out, okay, what's the right rate, what's the right spray timing, and Mr. Farmer, if you, or Mrs. or Miss Farmer, if you use this product in the way that we tell you to do it, you're going to see the least amount of response from your crop. Now, it would be awesome if just by some miracle we could have all our weeds gone without having to spray a herbicide out there. This is one of the things our dad told us growing up. He said, guys, we'd be ahead if we didn't have to spray a herbicide. We'd save the money, and yes, occasionally a herbicide can slow the plant down a little bit. It doesn't usually hurt yield, but it may slow it down for just a few days. So if we could somehow control the weeds and have your fields weed-free every single day, all year without a herbicide, that'd be great. Well, that doesn't exist. And you can say, well, let's go pull the weeds. Oh, that's great. You're going to have to be out there every single day, because even if the weed gets a ½ inch tall, a quarter of an inch tall, the farmer's already lost some yield. So that's why herbicides are so tremendously important.
And when we think about spraying anything out in a crop on plants, you have to start thinking about those plants and what kind of shape they're in. So what we're looking for is when things are actively growing. When you've got actively growing weeds, then they'll actually take in a herbicide and we can control them. When we've got temperatures that are really, really cool, or we've got temperatures that are excessively hot, or conditions where we're bone dry and haven't gotten rain for months, or conditions where it's raining like every other hour and we can't get a break. It's tough for plants to grow normally in those conditions. And when we come right out of those conditions, when the plants are kind of weakened, that's where you could see some potential injury in the crop. The other thing is when it's been really cool and wet. A lot of times the plants don't have their defenses up yet. Like when it's hot and dry, leaves get this waxy coat on them and they don't really let things in very well because they're trying to hold moisture in the plant. But when it's cool and wet, well, the leaves are wide open because, hey, everything's great and we can take moisture in, it's no problem. We aren't moisture stressed at all. So in those cases, you could see some more leaf burn too because herbicides move in very quickly.
Herbicides can move in very quickly in those cases, but normally a herbicide can get metabolized by the plant, so then the herbicide is safe to the plant. So again, this is herbicide selectivity we're talking about, and occasionally, yes, as farmers, we do see some leaf burn, but if we were that worried that the leaf burn was going to hurt yield, we wouldn't use those herbicides, the company wouldn't sell that product to us, and it wouldn't even be labeled for use in that particular crop. So again, as you're driving down the road, you may see a little bit of leaf burn from one crop to the next, but most of the time the plant's going to come out of it real quickly, nothing to get that worried about. But just understand that we as farmers have to spray some of these herbicides if we want great weed control. And sometimes, yes, we can see a little bit of crop response, but usually there's a lot more benefit than there is any damage to that crop.
One place I would love to see leaves burned is on our Weed of the Week. If it was in my field, we'll show you how to stop this tough weed coming up later in the show.
When there's work to be done on your farm, you can't afford to be grounded. Whether for repair or upgrade, you need quality new, used, and rebuilt parts fast. Worthington Ag Parts has what you need, and our distribution network offers same-day service to much of the country. And with 15% off all parts ordered in July, now's a great time to get to know us. Worthington Ag Parts, providing quality parts at quality prices and adding value to your farm operations for over 50 years.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Hey, I'm Lisa Kelly. You might know me from history's Ice Road Truckers, but this summer, I'm looking for a change of scenery. We'll be visiting Love's travel stops in search of people who, like Dello, are game changers. I can't wait to meet as many of you as possible. Join me as I make my way across America with Chevron to get the word out about its game-changing heavy-duty diesel engine oil, Dello 400 with Isosin advanced technology. We'll see you out there on the road all summer long with Chevron, Dello, and Love's.
We started utilizing the dual react system this year. You can adjust your speed and it automatically adjusts your sprayer tips. So you can slow down and you aren't building up huge droplets, or you can speed up and you're not throwing a mist that's drifting.
Hypro, helping you spray better.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else, because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
Sclerotinia white mold is a tough disease that impacts a number of crops, most notably soybeans that we'll talk about today, but a lot of the rules that we talk about with soybeans also hold true for other crops. Now with soybeans, it's often said that, well, if you want white mold protection, you better be out there right at R1, right at that first bloom, because the white mold fungus, that's where it tries to get into the plant as blooms dry up. The problem is fungicides only last so long, and the soybean plant blooms for a good portion of the season.
But let's step back for just a second and talk about where this disease comes from. What happens is you're going to have mushrooms that come up from the soil, and this will really only occur when you're going to have cooler, wetter conditions. So Sclerotinia white mold most years is kind of limited to the northern United States or up in Canada where we have cooler, wetter temps. So if there's moisture kind of trapped in a canopy of a different crop, you'll see some mushrooms down below. Well, those mushrooms can shoot spores out, and that's where the disease ends up getting into the plant. With white mold, yes, it can affect the plant all throughout the season, but where we see it most often is once reproduction begins, like Darren said, and then for probably the next month or two in that particular crop. With a lot of these fungicides, you can expect 10 days worth of residual. Okay, maybe you can get 2 weeks. Maybe by some miracle you can get 3 weeks. But the point is, if you're going to have 1 to 2 months worth of opportunity for that white mold to affect the plant. And if white mold's a bad disease in your crop, soybeans, dry beans, whatever crop you're raising, you got to be thinking about multiple applications.
All right, let's talk about that residual thing, because Brian said, oh, you maybe get 2 weeks and possibly a little bit more. That is on the surfaces that your spray droplets hit. That's not on new leaves and new blooms. So like in the northern United States, just because plants hit flowering, well, they're still growing as well, and there's going to be more flowers that are coming out in new spots. Those are unprotected, like 1 day after you spray fungicide. So we have to keep that in mind, that, you know what, we're always to some degree exposed to a risk here. Just every couple of weeks we may need to come back. I'll give you an example. At the Ag PhD Field Day site, we've got what we call the first step trials, and we're out there trying to take the first steps to higher yield, trying to turn some soil around, make it highly productive. Well, one of the things that happened a couple of years back is we had some white mold come in. Actually, it was last year. And putting out fungicide at R1 was great. Putting out fungicide at R3 really helped. And some of the guys quit applying fungicide and said, well, I've already done it twice. That's probably enough, because in the area of the country that those people were from, well, that was the normal treatment that, well, we normally don't see any after that point. However, we had cool, wet weather even later into the season, and R5 fungicide applications helped protect that plant even further and ended up with a little more yield. So it's one of those things to keep in mind. We're talking about it. You may say, well, I already sprayed at R1. Yep, but you probably need to spray again, and you may even need to spray a third time if you happen to have a real cool, cloudy, wet type of year.
All right, here are the steps you can follow to reduce white mold problems in your field. First of all, you want to have good drainage. Okay, get your crop off to a good start and have nice drainage out there so your soil isn't sitting wet all the time, so your crop is more healthy. Anytime you have a more healthy crop, then it's going to be able to tolerate disease better. Next, you want to look at your overall nutrients. The better you can balance your fertility, now you're in a lot better shape. They talk often in agriculture about the importance of nutrients like, let's say, copper, for example, zinc, boron, some of these different micronutrients, how important they are for disease protection. Well, really, it's all nutrients. It's just like you or me. If we take our vitamin every day, what happens? We're probably a little bit more disease tolerant. Same thing in your crop. The next thing is Contans is a biological product that when put on the soil, especially like right after you've had a white mold problem in your crop, you harvest their white mold sclerotia, it's like the seeds for white mold. You go spray that Contans on, the biological, and it eats the sclerotia. So you dramatically reduce your problems in future years. But anyway, that is a biological that can be used. In soybeans, you've got Cobra, but it's too late for spraying Cobra now on most farms. We'd really like to see it sprayed right before flowering. Then you get to fungicide choices.
When it comes to fungicides, well, the best one has been Endura, but the problem is Endura is pretty expensive. Now, in certain crops, that may be the right option for you. In soybeans, a lot of farmers will use Domark because the price point is so much more affordable for them. So Domark can certainly be used. At R1, a lot of times we'll see farmers, since beans are so short, using low rates. Maybe they'll use 2.5 or 3 ounces. When we get a little bit later into the season, we get bigger crop, more to cover. Many guys will go up to the 5-ounce rate to try to get white mold control. Proline would be another option, and depending on what crop you're in, one or all of these products may be labeled, so you have to check the labels for the crop that you're raising.
All right, here are my personal rankings. Endura's the best. Proline's a step down from that. Domark's another step down from that. And Topson I would compare somewhat similar to Domark. The advantage again to Domark is it's inexpensive, so is Topson. Proline's more expensive but a little better. Endura's the highest priced, but that is the best.
So the message today, if you're in an area that has white mold pressure, if you're in a field that has a history of white mold and the weather conditions are right, you've got to be out there spraying every couple of weeks to protect that soybean plant through flowering. If you're out scouting your fields and you see white mold, you've already lost some major yield. So you have to be out in front of this tough disease.
Well, another thing you need to be out in front of is our Weed of the Week. We'll tell you how to control it coming up later in the show.
Looking to maximize your yield potential? Monsanto BioAg can help with microbial seed applied solutions. Available for a wide variety of crops, they contain hard-working microbes that help your plants access key nutrients, enhance their root and shoot growth, and help them better withstand stress all season long, all of which add up to a higher yield potential for you. See how microbes can help you at monsantobioag.com/500trillion.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
Let's take a look at our picks for the championship season. We've got 10-34-0.
No. I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about this Agro Liquid team. Take a look at this lineup. They got it all. The talent, their players can meet any challenge on any field. The coaching staff, the best I've seen.
So that's your pick? No discussions?
Nope. Agro Liquid is the team. They're going all the way to the championship.
We love the quality, we love the construction. We're looking forward to working with Morton in the future.
They have this down to a science. They know exactly what you want. They know how to make it happen. It's an easy process.
I would definitely recommend Morton. From the first time I met the salesman to the last nail that the crew put in, it has been a positive and professional experience.
I'm so happy I found Morton because they just make the job so easy.
Find the building of your dreams at mortonbuildings.com.
It's getting really late in the season now. Let's say your corn's really big, maybe it's at tassel, and then you see a bunch of weeds out there. Should you do something for control? And if so, what are you going to use?
The game has been changed as soon as we had a big-time resistance problem. I remember as a kid, if we had a few cocklebur, for example, that got loose late in the season, Dad would say, you know what, it's not worth it at this point. It's not going to hurt this year's yield. That's just a few more weeds we'll have to kill next year. And maybe that meant Brian and I walking the soybean field one extra time. It wasn't that big a deal. But now with resistant weeds, you let a few water hemp or Palmer pigweed go, you may have 1 million new weeds out in the field that you wouldn't have had before, and they're all resistant to some of the toughest herbicides you've got. So it has changed how we look at late season escapes.
I don't think it's changed it at all, because once you get past a foot tall corn and you've kept that corn weed free in that first foot, after that point, studies have shown weeds are not going to hurt your yield this year. To Darren's point though, and he makes a great point, hey, if you let those weeds go to seed, you're going to have a lot more problem in the future. But is it worth going out there? Because you have to basically wait until brown silk, and then you could go out with maybe some 2,4-D. Well, number one, you've got potential drift issue to all the sensitive crops, and two, how about some of these weeds that are out there, have they already made seed? Because going to spray them when the seeds are already viable, that's not going to do you any good anyway. So there's a period there where you can't spray your corn with really anything. And during that time, that's when a lot of these seed heads can be formed. And I don't know, I mean, we've never gone in and drop nozzled anything after brown silk. I don't ever plan to. If there are some weeds, I'm probably just going to let them go to seed. And that absolutely, again, like Darren said, could be a mistake, but that's what I will probably do on our farm.
Okay, two things I want to talk about: seed viability and Roundup. First of all, Brian made the comment, if they've already got viable seed out there, you're too late. But the question is, well, that seed head is not completely developed. What if I get out there right now? Plants have one job, and that's to reproduce. That's it. So if you do kill a weed and it's getting a little bit late and the seed is almost made, my money is on that plant. I think the plant's going to somehow get it done that it's going to make seed. I'll give you an example, like dandelions, for example. You may pull a dandelion plant and you say, well, the flower is still yellow. It hasn't made any of that cotton that's going to be seed that blows around. You pull that weed, what happens? Watch it. You lay it on the ground, and within a couple of days, it's cotton and it's kicking some seeds out. I think the same thing happens in our fields. We just spray and hope that everything goes away, and many times we don't want to go back and look. I think if seed's on there, chances are some of it at least is going to be viable. Now, the last point I wanted to make is Roundup. We get a lot of questions about, well, okay, you talk about 2,4-D and I'm worried about drift. What about Roundup? I've got Roundup Ready corn. Can I spray Roundup late? The answer is no. You have to follow the label. And what happens is, if you spray over the top of corn, even corn that's as tall as the corn I'm standing in here, you're really pushing it. You're going to get a lot of that product that moves right down into the whorl, and you could see some issues. We've seen it in the past with off-label Roundup applications. It's trouble. I know at the university level, there's been a lot of trial work done. They've tried spraying it at different stages just to see what happens. It often hurts yield if you push it too late in the season.
The reason why we're talking about this today is you've got to learn from your mistakes. If you have a bunch of late season weeds, I'm not suggesting you spray. You can if you use the right product and it's labeled. But what I'm suggesting is use better pre-emerge herbicides in the future. We've made some mistakes on our farm, let some late season weeds go. We just said the next year, this isn't happening again. We're doing a better job with our pre's.
Well, one of those weeds that may tempt you to spray late is our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Weed of the Week is Burr Cucumber. It's a summer annual that's a creeping vine, and as soon as I say summer annual, you know, you might think, well, it can't be that tough to control, but no, this is a really difficult to control weed.
Well, it's one that grows fast, and anytime you have a vine, it's easier to control if you can get it right away.
Yep.
But as soon as it starts vining out, there's so many growing points, and they're hidden, and underneath leaves, it can be a challenge.
All right, let's start real quick in corn. Our best suggestion is probably Balance Flex, but Verdict's not too bad either. Post-emerge, I always like Status, but you know what, the HPPDs aren't too bad either, especially if you throw a little atrazine in.
Acres that we're putting metribuzin on in soybeans, we've really seen an impact in terms of control of burr cucumber, so I really like having metribuzin in. Something like Authority MTZ would be a great start in soybeans.
Post-emerge, one of the sulfonylurea products actually can help here. Also, you can go out with Cobra, Cadet. Roundup's not too bad if it's early. Liberty's pretty decent too.
In wheat, I like Sharpen Down, Husky Over the Top, Affinity Broad Spec could be another product that could help you as well.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, Burr Cucumber. But stay tuned, Iron Talk is coming up next.
There are micronutrients throughout the league, Joe. But let's take a look at Micro 500.
Yeah, the synergy of the micronutrients in this guy have raised the bar on the field. Those others are just wannabe Micro 500s.
So you think this is the player you'd want on your team?
You bet, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, Micro 500 always has a place on the field.
Okay. You can check out Micro 500 stats at agroliquid.com.
With the success of the Case IH Steiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. But only Case IH offers a 5-axle design to give you a smoother ride, more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
So far, looking behind the machine, I'm thoroughly impressed with them. Compared to the older concaves we were running, we were finding about 40 grains, and we put these new ones in it, and it's hard to find one.
After the break, I found out about these concaves. While we were down, we put these concaves in, and it was like a different machine. I'd say we probably saved 3 to 5 bushels to the acre. I probably tripled my money just by putting these in.
Hey, I'm Lisa Kelly. You might know me from history's ice road truckers, but this summer, I'm looking for a change of scenery. We'll be visiting Love's travel stops in search of people who, like Dello, are game changers. I can't wait to meet as many of you as possible. Join me as I make my way across America with Chevron to get the word out about its game-changing, heavy-duty diesel engine oil, Dello 400, with Isosin advanced technology. We'll see you out there on the road all summer long with Chevron, Dello, and Love's.
The Guardian Air Twin Spray Nozzle from Hypro produces a twin spray pattern with air inducted droplets for superior coverage, even in dense canopies. Be effective and efficient with your spray application this season with the Guardian Air Twin. Hypro, helping you spray better.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
For much of the country, it's getting late for side dress or late season fertilizer applications. But if you still have time this year or are thinking about it for next year, there's one big consideration you should have. I'll discuss it in today's Iron Talk. There is some great equipment available for late application of fertilizer in crops. Also, plant tissue testing is getting more widely used all the time, so the awareness is growing of what nutrients our crops need and what they may be short in. However, just because a crop is short in something and you can actually apply that nutrient to the field doesn't mean that it will get into the plant in time to save your yield. Case in point, potassium fertilization. On Ag PhD Radio, we received an email from a farmer this week who saw he was short in potassium and wanted to apply more around tassel time in corn. The problem is, he's got heavy soils and no irrigation. The chance of his potassium getting into the crop through the root system is pretty slim. Nitrogen moves in the soil well and has been used in late season applications for a long time. Nutrients like potassium, though, move very little in the soil. Foliar feeding with something like Sure-K may be his best shot in this case. Yes, there are some great ways to get fertilizer out there for your crop later in the season. Just check with a knowledgeable agronomist about which types of fertilizer could actually help you out this year. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
Well, that's our time for today, but before we go, I just have a couple of things for you. First of all, please attend the Ag PhD Field Day. We'd love to have you come to the Field Day. It is Thursday, July 27th. Just go to agphd.com for more information. Also, we would invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us each weekday on SiriusXM channel 147. That's the rural radio channel at 2 p.m. Central.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
There are as many living things in a handful of soil as there are people on planet Earth. But what do they do, and how do farmers work with them to raise successful crops? Beneficial bacteria, fungi, and other microbial creatures are being used in the production of nearly every crop. To learn more, visit rnmf.org.